You know, Helen Bradford never thought a simple trip to the bank would turn into one of the most humiliating moments of her life. At 62, she carried herself with a quiet dignity, pressed blouse, modest gold earrings, her natural hair pinned up neatly. That morning, she even wore her soft lavender church dress, the one she usually saved for Sundays, but today felt important. Clutching a crisp envelope, Helen was ready to deposit a check her son, Anthony, had sent her $9,800 just to help out. Her water heater had broken down last week, and Anthony, always thoughtful, had asked for her mailing address almost before she finished explaining the problem. The bank was familiar, a branch in her St. Louis neighborhood she'd been visiting for years, back when it was just a small credit union. The same brick building, the same green carpet, though fewer familiar faces and more screens now. She walked up to the counter, waited politely as a young teller with sleek hair and long acrylic nails was busy tapping on her screen. When the teller finally looked up, Helen smiled and said, "Hi there, I just need to deposit this check." She slid the envelope forward and opened it carefully, revealing the signed check. That's when things went sideways. The teller glanced at the check, narrowed her eyes, and asked, "Is this yours?" There was a hesitation, a suspicion Helen could feel but not quite place. "Yes, ma'am," she replied softly. "It's for my son. He sent it yesterday." The teller picked up the check like it was contaminated, like it carried some invisible dirt. "Do you have an account here?" she asked. Helen nodded. "I've had one for years." The teller typed in Helen's name, paused, raised an eyebrow, then looked at the check again. "Anthony Bradford," she said slowly, like tasting something unfamiliar. "Who exactly is that?" Helen hesitated, throat tightening. "My son. What does he do?" "He works in renewable energy. Owns a company, Bradford Solutions." The teller clicked her tongue, eyes flicking back to the check. "Almost $10,000. I'm going to need to verify this." Helen stayed calm. "You can call him if you want. I can give you his number." But the teller didn't pick up the phone. She just stared for a moment, then without warning fed the check right into the paper shredder beside her desk. The sound wasn't loud, but in that moment, it felt like a thunderclap in Helen's chest. "Excuse me." Helen barely found her voice. The teller shrugged, smirking. "If it's legit, he can issue another one. We don't process suspicious checks, especially not for that amount." Two people waiting in line turned around. A man in a gray cap shook his head slowly. Helen's face flushed hot with embarrassment, but she didn't yell, didn't curse. She just stared at the shredder, as if it had swallowed something sacred. "I'd like to speak to your manager," she said quietly. No apology came. "You can come back with proper documents," the teller said, waving toward the next customer. Helen's hands trembled as she backed away toward the lobby chairs, clutching her purse. The waiting area was cold, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones, even when you're nowhere near a vent. She sat down, hands still shaking, feeling every ounce of humiliation wash over her. No tears, not yet. She hadn't cried in public since her husband died 15 years ago, but her stomach twisted like a knot. Across the room, a young couple glanced her way. The woman looked confused, the man embarrassed for her. But no one said a word. Helen stared at the floor. That money wasn't for a shopping spree, it was for a new water heater, Dr. Copays, maybe a little save for the next thing that would inevitably break down. She wasn't living fancy. She'd lived in the same two-bedroom bungalow since 1989. Her car was old, but ran fine. She took care of what she had. What stung most wasn't the shredded check, it was that look from the teller, the way she dismissed Helen like a scammer, like someone who didn't belong, like she couldn't possibly be connected to someone successful. And that smug voice telling her she needed proper documentation. Prope. Helen had been proper all her life. Back at the counter, the teller didn't yell. Helen caught the name from her nameplate, was laughing at something a customer said just minutes before. That same mouth had just crushed Helen. A manager eventually came out, a man in a slim navy suit, but from a distance, he whispered to Danielle, nodded, and walked away without even approaching Helen. The door to his office closed behind him. Helen clenched her purse tighter, staring down at the floor. Then a small voice broke through. A little girl, no older than 7, had walked up with her mother. The girl smiled, waved slightly, then was gently pulled away. The mother whispered, "Don't bother her, baby." Helen smiled softly, thinking about all those long soccer practices she'd sat through when Anthony was younger, cold bleachers, plastic coffee cups. She'd do it all over again. Her eyes drifted to the bank's big digital monitor near the entrance usually. She ignored those slides about local partnerships and business leaders. But this time, one image stopped her cold. There was Anthony Sharp in a charcoal suit, standing behind a podium at a city conference. The caption read, "Bradford Solutions CEO Anthony Bradford speaks at the Gateway Economic Inclusion Summit presented by First Guardian Bank." Blinking, Helen saw more Anthony shaking hands with the mayor, his company's logo glowing above the bank's name in a partnership announcement. People around noticed, too. Whispers grew. "Wait, is that the guy on the check?" someone asked. The manager, the same one who'd ignored Helen earlier, suddenly rushed out, eyes wide, voice low. "Mrs. Bradford, I think there's been a terrible mistake. Could we talk in my office?" Behind the counter, Danielle's face had gone pale. The manager looked flustered, sweating, now clearly shaken by the realization. Helen stood, legs trembling but back straight. "I asked to speak to a manager 30 minutes ago," she said softly, loud enough for him to hear. "Please, come with me," he said, leading her into his office. Helen didn't sit immediately, looking him straight in the eye. "Are you sorry because of what happened, or because my son's picture showed up on your wall?" The manager's face flushed. "No, ma'am. That played a role, but mostly I'm embarrassed. That's not how we treat customers, especially not long-time customers like yourself." Helen nodded slowly, voice steady. The teller shredded the check, didn't ask for ID, didn't call to verify. She just assumed I was lying. The manager looked down at his hands. "Do you know what that check meant?" Helen asked. "It was for my son, a man you plaster all over this branch. I raised him on my own, worked 3 jobs some years. And today, I stood at that counter while your employee treated me like trash." He nodded quickly. "You're absolutely right. That should never have happened." Helen exhaled, leaning back slightly. "Now imagine how she treats someone who doesn't have a son on your digital display." The room fell silent. The manager swallowed hard and promised to call corporate, replace the funds immediately if Anthony could confirm the amount. Helen cut him off. "I don't need you to fix the money. I need you to fix the thinking." Outside the office, word spread fast. The atmosphere in the bank had shifted. Then the manager's phone rang corporate. "They've already heard," he whispered. Helen nodded, composed but firm. "Good. I'll let my son know." The manager stammered. "We truly hope this doesn't affect our relationship with Mr. Bradford." She turned, walking out without another word. Back in the lobby, the digital monitor cycled back to Anthony's photo, his sharp suit, his keynote quote, "We rise by lifting others. Progress means everyone, not just the privileged." The teller station was empty. Danielle was nowhere to be seen. Then, a woman from the line approached Helen Teresa Delgado, an older employee with kind eyes. "I just want to say I'm sorry," Teresa said. "That should never have happened. I've been here 15 years, never seen anything like that." Helen smiled softly. "Thank you. You know, your son's doing amazing things. I saw his speech online." Tears welled, but she blinked them away. "I did my best." That night, Helen drove home in silence. The next morning, things would no longer be just a bank story. Anthony Bradford was on his way, and he wasn't coming quietly. Pulling into the parking lot in a dark gray Tesla, dressed casually in jeans and a navy windbreaker with his company logo stitched above the chest, Anthony entered the bank alone. The energy shifted immediately. The manager and staff tried to act casual, but their nervous glances told the truth. Someone had posted the incident online with a blurry photo of the bank's digital screen and Anthony's face tag, captioned, "Imagine shredding a check from this man's mother," then playing his promo video 5 feet away. Anthony walked straight to the manager. "You know why I'm here." The manager extended a hand. "Mr. Bradford, we are deeply sorry for the way your mother was treated." Anthony didn't take the handshake. "Where's the woman who shredded the check?" "She's been placed on administrative leave pending review," the manager said, hesitant. Is that the same as fired? Not yet. Protocol. Anthony's voice cut through the lobby, firm and calm. So your protocol is to protect her job before protecting your customer's dignity? A few bystanders pretended not to eavesdrop. The manager tried to deflect, but Anthony pulled out a folded paper, a list of every organization his company partnered with that banks with First Guardian. If you want to keep those accounts, I suggest your corporate office make a public apology today. The manager's hands trembled as he took the list. Anthony turned to the crowd. Your staff doesn't need diversity training. They need basic respect. An older man stood up. Mr. Bradford, I've been here since this was a credit union. I'm ashamed of what happened. If someone treated my daughter like that, I'd be right where you are. Anthony nodded. Teresa stepped forward. Helen's been banking here longer than most of us have worked here. That girl looked at her like she was a criminal. Anthony breathed slowly. My mom's never bounced a check, never borrowed payday loans, never asked me for help. That check was the first time she said yes when I offered to give back what she gave me. The room fell quiet. You can't undo what happened, Anthony said to the manager. But you can show what kind of institution this is. The manager promised to contact corporate immediately. Anthony's tone softened. Because if this happened to someone whose face is on your screen, what's happening to the people who aren't? He left without another word. Outside, cameras arrived. The internet was just waking up. By 7 a.m., Anthony's phone buzzed nonstop interview requests pouring in. He called his mother. Morning, Ma. Morning, baby, Helen answered, tired but steady. How are you holding up? I've had better bank visits, she said, and they laughed softly. Helen said, I'm proud of you, but don't let this eat you up. I do, Anthony said, and that's exactly why I'm not letting it slide. Days later, Anthony posted on LinkedIn. Yesterday, my 62-year-old mother was accused of fraud at a bank she's used for decades. She came in to deposit a check. I sent her $9,800 to help with repairs. The teller shredded it without verifying her identity. An hour later, my face appeared on the bank's digital wall as one of their featured clients. Think about that. The post went viral. Stories poured in from around the country, elderly denied withdrawals. Young mothers forced to show multiple IDs while their white co-workers breezed by. Anthony read every word. Knowing this wasn't just about a check, it was about respect, or the lack of it. Helen gave an interview, not a rant, just the truth softly told. The clip hit millions. The bank scrambled with apologies and promises, but the public wasn't buying empty words. Activists, journalists, everyday people shared their stories, voices rising together in quiet power. Helen didn't want to be a symbol. She just wanted to be treated like any customer walking in with a check and a smile. 2 weeks later, she spoke at a financial literacy workshop for seniors, telling her story plainly. If you never speak up, they keep treating you that way. The room was silent, then slowly, softly applause. Helen worked quietly with her son to launch the Bradford Fund, helping seniors get fair treatment, educating banks on respect. Anthony kept leading his clean energy company, but dedicated Thursdays to the foundation, telling crowds, my mom didn't ask to be treated special. She asked to be treated normal, and that says everything. The bank never fully recovered. But that wasn't Helen's concern anymore. She had a garden to tend, letters to fold, young people to encourage, because sometimes change starts quietly in the most ordinary places. So if you've ever felt dismissed, ignored, made small in a room where you deserve dignity, remember Helen Bradford, her grace, her quiet power. And don't let the moment pass in silence. If this story moved you, share your thoughts, because stories like Helen's remind us all that respect isn't earned by wealth or fame. It's a right. What do you think? How many Helen Bradfords are out there, waiting to be seen? And what will you do when you see them?